Hello, everyone. I hope everyone had a relaxing weekend and you're ready to get back to sewing, or maybe you sewed something for a couple of days and had a wonderful time in your sewing room, but welcome. We are finishing up our month of May and our promotion of the eTee project for So Confident. I also want to talk about the eTee just one more time. The eTee, whoops, I'm about to drop that. This is the shape of the eTee in the pattern. Has a bit of a curve on the side seams at the bottom do create this little A shape. Has a semi-cap sleeve, a little longer than that. But it's a nice shape with a lower curve at the bottom hem. So what we've done for the May So Confident project is we have straightened that out. And it's no longer a curve, but now it's a straight line on the side seam. The front is straightened out, no longer curved. It's shorter in the front and longer in the back. The back is a woven fabric connected to a waffle weave knit. This waffle weave doesn't have any spandex in it, so there's no recovery to it, so it's an interesting fabric to sew. And then we have this loose panel, semi-connected at the arm's eye, the shoulder, and the neck, and it creates this wonderful overlay. So that's the difference between the eTee regularly and what we're doing for it in May. As you know, the So Confident program this year is taking one of our patterns, we use the same pattern for a couple of months in a row, and then we tweak it and make it look like something not like an eTee anymore, not like what the original pattern was. So we have some kits that all of them have the white waffle weave knit, but we also have pink and white stripe, green and white stripe, and we also have put all of these fabrics, the waffle weave and 3 striped linens, as a separate item as well. So you can buy the kit or you can buy the yardage of any of these fabrics. So that's new for us this month. But I also want to show you the other thing, that if you buy the eTee, it comes in sizes extra small to XXL, and we've added plus sizes 1X to 5X. So here's the shape of the, I believe this is a 2X. And you can see that there's a bit more curve to the hip, but the elements that I described in the original eTee are absolutely there. And it's just one of our favorite basic t-shirts. When you order the eTee, you get all of the sizes, but you have a choice of having us print out either the extra small to XXL sizes or the 1X to 5X sizes, so that you don't have to have all of the sizes printed out. So that's new. Okay. Last year, I think it was, for 2 or 3 years in a row, we've had something called linen gauze. And the word gauze in this case is a little bit not quite correct, but I don't know that we know what to call it. But it is a semi-sheer knit fabric that's all 100% linen. And we've had it in bright colors, we've had it in lots of colors, but this year we decided to get it in some more subdued, softer colors. I think they're really beautiful, so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. We also have this really interesting garment that has this is taken from, believe it or not, the Plaza jacket, if you can even recall what that looks like. And this is, Betsy designed this. I think it's really interesting. It's so simple, and yet it requires some instruction. About 4 pages of download instructions. Basically, you cut a couple of rectangles, or you cut 3 rectangles, 2 for the front and 1 for the back. The back is slightly shorter than the front. The front is cut a little bit wider because there's some easing across the shoulder, not super gathered, but just a little extra fabric to allow for a beautiful drape. But it does have some of the same elements as the plaza jacket had. It has a separate band that goes around the back that's actually curved, so it fits nicely around the neck. All of the edges are hemmed with a couple of different widths of hems. This one's about 1 inch wide, bottom's wide, and then the sides, which would normally be a seam, are left open. And these are hemmed separately. So this is all one hem all through this side. And then the arm opening is created by doing a little tack, bar tack, wherever, but we tell you where to put it. But you can put it where you want to. So you have an armhole, and yet it's still open into a beautiful drapey V vent at the sides. So this is a garment that we played around with and is beautiful in a fabric like this, because this linen gauze, as we're calling it, is super drapey. As you can see, semi-opaque, a little bit sheer, not a lot. And I put it on the mannequin or the dress form over the eTee. But in this case, we have lengthened the eTee a lot. I can't tell you how many inches exactly, but I'm going to say 6, 7 inches, something like that. So the eTee, which we've just described before, makes a great tunic, and it would make a great dress. So if you're interested in that summer knit dress, summer knit tunic, this is your garment. Kept the same sleeve, cap sleeve, but it can have any length of sleeve that you want. So you could have a sleeve coming out of this garment in a 3/4 or even a long sleeve. But this is the kind of garment that I think gives you that third piece, finishes out an ensemble without having a major sweater or jacket, so forth. You can still stay cool for the spring, summer, fall, and you've just added that extra element of interest to your ensemble. So this is a 4-page tutorial on how to make this. We think that linen gauze is the fabric of choice, and I'm going to talk about the colors that we have on the wall in a minute. But if you buy some linen gauze this week, you're going to get this 4-page tutorial on how to make this garment. It's not a pattern. You're going to create some rectangles, and it'll tell you how to sew it together. So that is our kind of featured garment. But I have on the pearl jacket. And this is the kind of jacket that I love to travel in. It gives me a little bit of warmth without being hot. Let's say an airplane is getting kind of cool, or I'm in a cool restaurant, maybe even another place in the country or the world that has some cool evenings. I've never been as cold as I've been in the desert at night, so maybe if you live in that kind of climate. But one of the things I like about it is I'm wearing it that just has this folded casing in the front, so it just looks like a hem. But the pattern includes a drawstring. And one of the things you can do to this, let's say you're on the plane and you are getting a little bit cold and you want a little something around your neck. Well, you just pull up this drawstring and you have a little bit of a closed neck that makes you feel warmer. It's like putting on a scarf without having that extra thing that you're going to lose in the airport anyway. So the pearl has interesting lines to it. It has seaming that is kind of on the diagonal here. It does have a side seam on the side. It's much shorter in the back, has a seam across the back, and then that seam changes in the front. So it's very interesting. Get that wonderful drapey look, that lengthening kind of look. You can make the sleeve length anything you want, including sleeveless, which we've done. We've left the sleeve off, and you can hem the arm's eye, or you can create a little facing, or you can bind the edge. That makes a nice vest as well. So it would have a similar appearance as this, but not quite. So I've purposely put it with Eureka tops. So this is a Eureka top underneath it. I'm wearing the Eureka top. Both of these items are in the linen gauze. And I like the proportion of this. I actually this morning wore an eTee to work and put this garment on, and I realized it was not quite the right length. There was too much, it was too long, and while I don't mind garments that hang out below a jacket, there was just something about the proportion of that eTee that wasn't quite right. So it reminded me that the Eureka top is the perfect companion piece to wear with this particular garment. So this black one is kind of a workhorse for me. The idea of a neutral off-white or black or a great little neutral color is, to me, sort of the perfect thing to wear for those summer evenings, restaurant, airplane wearings, whatever. So that's the pearl jacket and the Eureka top. The other garment that I have made in the gauze is the Barcelona. And I wore this the other day on some filming, and it was such a beautiful garment actually to wear. I'd sort of forgotten about it, to tell you the truth, because the pattern has a long sleeve, but I shortened it to just right above the elbow. You can see that it has this insertion of a cowl that's a little bit asymmetric. The seam here is on the diagonal, and while this also has a drawstring, I don't really cinch this in. I just ease it just a little bit and let the drawstring be a feature. And I think the look is really nice. Now, because this is more of a top, I found that I needed to wear a camisole under it. I looked in the mirror and I couldn't see through this on me. But you know, there are those times when you realize, you pass yourself in a mirror and you think, oh my gosh, I should have something on underneath it. And I thought, I'm going to run into that situation. I didn't know what the camera would do with this garment, so I wore a camisole. But I don't know that I would have had to. Anyway, Barcelona, pearl, and Eureka. And then we have our Shirred Longline vest over there. So let's talk about this fabric a little bit. It's simple to sew, but there are some things that you want to have on hand. So it's a knit, so of course you're going to use a polyester thread. There's always this discussion about needles. I have since, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, stopped using that standard 80 millimeter needle, which is what I was told to use for everything when I was in junior high. And now I use a 65 or a 70, so something, a smaller needle is probably better for this type of fabric. You know, as you lighten the fabric, you want to reduce the size of the needle. And the heavier the fabric, the larger size of the needle. I've learned to really love these long quilting pins. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this really, but these are a little extra long. They have a glass head to them, but they're very flexible. And I like that because when I'm pinning, I can maybe take the pin a couple of times through a fabric like this. So when you're working with something that has a little more of an open weave or a sheer, it's nice to run the pin through the fabric more than once. It's going to stay in better. And those longer, flexible pins do that. I think I said needle. I think I meant to say pins. You know what I mean, or pins. All right. This fabric does shrink, and so you're going to want to pre-wash this fabric. I can't tell you how much, but I would definitely get an extra half a yard of fabric for your need, just in case. You're going to cut out single layer. When you wash this fabric, the grain tends to get a little bit wonky. And so you can, do the old stretch it on the bias and try to straighten it out. But you're better off trying to steam it, I think, and get it back into shape. But you're going to want to be able to see the grain. And the only way to really cut out as close to straight a grain as possible is to do that on a single layer. It's impossible to do it when you're cutting out double layer. Markings are another thing. Our traditional chalks and pencils and pens tend to disappear on a fabric such as this because of the texture and the sheerness of it. So you want something that's going to stay in and show. And Tailor's tacks are my preferred method of marking a fabric like this, but I also sometimes will just use a really tiny little safety pin, and let's say 1 in the front of a sleeve and 2 in the back of a sleeve, just to identify some notches so that I really know where they are. It's one thing to do a tailor's tack on a dot that's an interior marking on a garment, but when you're needing to mark notches, then I think it's better if you use a very small safety pin for that. Knit stay tape. I don't use knit stay tape very often, but I think that you need to stay or stabilize the shoulders of a garment when you're using a fabric like this. Because this does not have spandex or lycra or a stretch fiber in it, there's no recovery. And when you hang this garment on a hanger, it can tend to stretch out. It can also tend to form a little stretched out section where it's hung on the hanger. And you can either put that back over a ham and kind of steam that back, or certain garments like a Eureka top, you might want to actually fold that to store it rather than hang it. But knit stay tape just on the back, centered over the back shoulder seam, is plenty. You don't need it on the front as well. So when you actually sew, you're sewing through the stay tape. Sometimes I will stabilize a neckline. It kind of depends on what the neckline shape is. If I'm doing a binding like on this Eureka top, I'm not going to stabilize the neck because I'm going to be sewing it, serging it, top stitching it. There's plenty of stabilizing thread that's happening for that. But if I have a simple neckline and maybe just one turn or a facing, I'm probably going to stabilize it. All right, seam finishes. Our standard seam finish is just fine. I'm going to sew that seam at 5/8 of an inch using my polyester thread, and then I'm going to 3-thread serge the edge, the 2 edges together, and press the seam one way. Now, I'm a big proponent of Isacord. I buy these at my Bernina dealer. Don't tell them what you're doing with it because they don't think it can be used other than for embroidery, but I can tell you it's a beautiful finish. What I like about it is it's very silk-like and shiny, and you don't get a lump when you press the seam. There's no show-through. It also is available in 480 colors, so you can get awfully close, or over time, as you're buying 3 spools of this, and you build up your colors, and you definitely probably have a color theme in your life, and you probably have what you need over time. But another thread that I do like is called Ceracore, and this is polyester, and it comes in a different kind of spool. Ceracore is also a lightweight thread. It's much better than the Maxi Lock and the other kinds of fluffy, less expensive threads. So treat yourself to a nice serging thread. You've spent some good money on a pattern and on fabric and good thread. Don't stop at buying the right product for your serger as well. Fusee web. For the hems on this, there's really no other product to use. This is the sheerest product on the market. When you fuse this paper-covered web down, you can see how sheer that webbing is. There's no other product in the market this sheer. Every other fusible web product is going to either form a ridge or a lump where you can see it's too stiff. You won't even know this is in there. But it helps so much when you're using a walking foot and you're doing your hems. You're going to want to fuse down your hems first without having to pin them, and then you're not going to get any sort of ruffling or blips or tucks or puckers or whatever. It's going to be a very, very smooth hem. So fusee web and walking feet kind of go hand in hand. When I talk about turned hems, I'm talking about this, where you don't have a raw edge showing. So let's say a garment like this, it's flipping back. that looks really nice. You're not going to see a raw edge, or you're not going to see a serged edge. I found that a serged edge on this fabric is maybe appropriate in certain cases, but I think this is a more refined look. This is a knit, so of course it's not going to really ravel, but the edge of it as a raw edge is not beautiful. There's a certain ragged flavor to it. So go ahead and just use your turned hems. You're going to want to use your template method, which I talk about all the time. You know, you have one template that is wider, that is the hem allowance, and then you have a narrower template that is the actual hem finished width. So you use the templates to get nice crisp edges and get a nice even turn back. And then with your fusee web and your top stitching, it's going to be really perfect and lie really smoothly. Sometimes a fabric like this, it's a little hard to start your stitching. And so I might use a little scrap of paper to place right under the work, between the work and the throat plate. And that allows me to get started with things getting jammed up in my throat plate. And of course, my throat plate, I have a 5.5 millimeter throat plate on my machine all the time. It's way better than the 9 millimeter throat plate that comes on so many machines, particularly the ones that embroider, because you need those the wider opening for the multi-motion stitches. But 5.5 is my standard. But every once in a while, I'll dig out my single hole throat plate if I'm really having trouble of the fabric getting caught inside the throat plate. Those are extra accessories. I think it's something you can ask your dealer, first of all, if they have it, and secondly, how about if I buy a machine, you throw in a throat plate or something like that? They'll hate me when I say that. All right, this fabric steams really beautifully, but you can overpress it. It can become shiny, and the edges can be just too crisp. So just be careful. I'll steam something, I'll steam a hem, and then I might hand press it, finger press it, lightly press it with the iron, but you don't want to overpress this at all. But it does take steam really well. And if you do get a little bit of waving here and there, it's easy to steam this out. So you can get a good result, get good looking finished edges and seams and so forth on this fabric. So it's easy to sew. I don't mean to scare you with this whole long list of things. But these are things that I think about all the time when I'm sewing most knits, not just these semi-sheer knits. So just take note of that. All right. This drawstring affair. So I had a drawstring on this garment this morning when I walked in here. And we have a tutorial called Loops and Tubes that teaches you how to make long tubes like this. And I use that ballpoint bodkin to make most of my tubes, or to turn the tubes. But so I took this out this morning because I liked the look without it. Sometimes if you are making the purl and you have the drawstring in here and you're not going to be ruching the neckline, then you do have these hanging out, which is not terrible, but I didn't love it this morning. So I took it out, but I know the day will come when I want to put this back in. And that's when I use my eTee threader. This is the best thing. I don't know, it's sort of up there with fusee web in a way. You want something like this where you can attach this either by pinning it or whip stitching it, and you just stick that through this casing and draw it through. I have repaired more of my daughter's jackets and clothes that had drawstrings on them with this tool. When you think it's impossible to get to them, this really does work. eTee threader it's called. All right, let's look at some fabric, unless we have some questions I need to answer now.
We do have some questions.
Okay.
Is the fabric, the linen knit, is it soft to the touch? especially like if you're, wearing it across your elbows or anything like that, and you're on a table or
Yeah,
any
this is
scratching?
very soft. This is not crisp, not prickly. It is extremely soft. Like extremely soft.
And then when you wash the fabric, can you tell them, like, did you use cold water? Did you dry it?
Well, when I wash a fabric for the first time, I'm going to throw it in warm water and dry it on my low setting. I don't really baby it particularly, not with cold water. I want to get the sort of the most shrinkage out of it that first time without beating up the fabric with hot water and hot dry. So it's moderate in both cases. And then if I'm going to wash the garment, then that's when I might wash it in cold water, hang it to dry or whatever. But that first time, I'm trying to get the most shrinkage out of it.
And we did have a tip from Amy, who had bought this fabric. She said that it did shrink 6 inches in length, but not in width. But it also became a little bit sheer, or a little less sheer when she washed it.
Well, that's true.
Which she loved, and she said it's beautiful.
Yeah, well, good, thanks. Yes, that is true. Because it's shrinking, then, of course, it's going to close up the weave just a little bit. So you're right. It's a little less sheer.
Is the straight of grain parallel to the selvage, even though the lines in the fabric look wonky?
Yeah, the straight of grain is parallel to the fabric. But this is kind of what I'm talking about. I can see on this piece that the width is going a little bit on the diagonal, but the straight of grain is very straight. So you want to lay out parallel to the selvage. And if you can see, sometimes I'll recommend, since you can see the vertical ribs of a knit, maybe chalk mark those every once in a while so you have this frame of reference for straight of grain throughout the width. I'll do that every once in a while.
Do you use Isacord in the sewing machine or the serger?
Good question. I probably didn't say that. I use Isacord in my serger only. I never sew with it. It is not a sewing thread.
And do you do 3-thread or 4-thread?
Always 3-thread. 4-thread is reserved for sewing a seam completely, which I never do. I shouldn't say never. If I'm going to make an athletic garment, let's say some workout pants or something that's close fitting, a lot of strain, a lot of stress, children's clothes, something like that, I might use 4-thread. But for me, finishing is 3-thread always. And particularly on a fabric like this that's semi-sheer, you want less thread. That 4-thread is just not necessary. So it's always, I use the narrowest setting and 3-thread. Now, sometimes you'll find a fabric, let's say a bulky fabric, a sweater knit, or even velvet, if you're trying to serge that, where the 3-thread maybe doesn't hang on to the edge very well. I might add a 4-thread there. But I would say 95% of the time I'm serging with 3 threads. And the Isacord is in my serger only.
Okay. What width stay tape do you use on the back shoulder?
It is 1/2 inch wide. You can either cut your own, you can use a fusible, say knit interfacing and just cut strips, or you can buy a prepackaged, we sell it, knit stay tape that's 1/2 inch wide.
Is the vest tutorial available on its own?
Not at this time, no. It's only available with the purchase of the linen gauze.
Can you use the threader with elastic?
Yes, I do that all the time. Yes, this threader can be used with elastic through any kind of casing, any kind of, it's not just for ties and that sort of thing. It's probably made for elastic, to tell you the truth, and I use it for other things, but yeah.
Do you always serge the seams together and press one way?
That is the seam finish that seems to be my #1 seam finish. That's what you see in ready-to-wear. good, ready to wear. In the old days, I would cut something out and I would pre-finish, serge the edges of things, and then sew seams and press them open. But those days are kind of over for me. I would say most seams are serged together and pressed one direction.
And do you use the isocord for cover stitching as well?
I do. I use isocord for cover stitching as well. It's beautiful.
How much yardage do you need for the vest?
Well, let's see here. 2 yards of 60-inch wide. It can be made in a woven also. It can be made in anything, but yes, 2 yards.
And do you allow extra yardage for the shrinkage?
Yes, I would get 2.5 yards if you're wanting to make this garment.
Okay. Can you make the Eureka in a woven?
Yes, you can. We've made the Eureka in a lot of wovens. I've made it in silk charmeuse. Erin's made it in chambray and denim. Yes. The issue is always getting something over your neck, but the neck opening of the Eureka is large enough for you to get on in a woven. The Eureka, the Eureka is fairly boxy with a fair amount of ease, so you shouldn't have any trouble.
You were talking about this, but I just want to ask the question again. Would you use a camisole with the linen gauze?
Probably. It kind of depends on the color, the style, but I would have to say generally yes, if it's a top. But for instance, I'm wearing the Eureka without a camisole with something over it. No, I don't have on a camisole.
Would you mind putting the vest on?
Sure. You didn't like it on the dress form, huh?
We have a couple questions, requests.
Oops, didn't get my arm in there. Am I put together?
Yes, I think the jump did it.
Yeah.
Pull back.
Now, I don't have the greatest arms in the world, so I would likely, it depends. I might wear a longer sleeved top.
Yeah, I think that's cute. I like it with the Eureka, actually. The color is
Do you?
fun.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Perfect. So Betsy mentioned that the linen knit is 50 inches wide. So should they get a little bit more of the knit since this says 60?
Well, this says 57 inches.
Oh, okay.
I consider that 60.
Okay.
Now, maybe, 57.
Okay.
I think you're fine.
Okay.
We could measure this real quickly. Is there a tape measure around?
I can go get one.
Maybe we should do that. It's almost 60. The half width is 29.
Oh, okay.
And if
Okay.
Amy was correct, it doesn't shrink in the width. So you should be okay.
Okay. What thread do you use for top stitching the vest?
I would use the same thread. I would use this. Now, if you want to feature top stitching, something that really stands out, sits on the top, contrasting color, then I'm going to use a heavier thread. But my top stitching, for the most part, is usually just a sewn line, and I'm using the very same thread that I've constructed the garment with. This feels really good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It goes back to the comfort question, not
Yeah.
scratchy or anything
No,
like that.
not at all.
Okay. So all the garments you've shown are in knit, correct?
Correct.
Like those Eurekas, eTees, and
Right.
everything. Okay.
Yeah.
So is the linen gauze an actual gauze fabric similar to a double weave like cotton gauze?
No. This is not a double weave. This is a single weave. We're calling it gauze because of the nature of the sheerness. Perhaps we should just be calling it linen knit semi-sheer, but we do use the term gauze with it because the manufacturer does.
Can you turn around and maybe I can get a little detail on the shoulders when you turn back around to the front. Okay. So the gathering is just the shearing.
Yeah, the shoulders, the gathering's just on the front.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it jersey?
Is it jersey? Well, we'll see. I think it is, but we will find out. It's jersey. It
Okay.
curled to the right side.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a jersey knit. So you have the vertical ribs on the face side of the fabric and the horizontal loops on the reverse side.
Could the vest sleeves be lengthened?
Well, it's a rectangle. So to lengthen the sleeves is making a wider rectangle, which is fine. So you could make that rectangle several inches longer and it would come down further on your arm. It would also be wider all the way down. This does not have a sleeve. It has an opening. Let me show you the shapes. I mean, these are literally rectangles. So in order to make the sleeve longer, you cut a wider rectangle.
Okay. Is the quality of the linen knit similar to Eileen Fisher?
Yes, it is. There's very little difference, actually. I was in an Eileen Fisher store in Florida a few years ago and looking at a white T-shirt that was, a couple $100s or more, and I couldn't tell the difference. There may be a difference, but it looks very, very, very similar.
There was a question in the beginning about the eTee, so I wanted to get back to it. Okay, can you explain the sizing of the eTee to me? My pattern shows 7 sizes ranging from 1 to 4, but the new sizes range from extra small to XXL, which is 6 sizes.
Go to our website and look at our measurement chart. You can go under Help at the top of the website, and then in the drop-down, it says Measurement Charts. Under the measurement chart, it has the extra small, all of the sizes like that. Then right under that, it lists the corresponding numbers. So if you have the original eTee that has the numbered sizes, you can make that comparison within that measurement chart.
And it is kind of, like size 1 is extra small, size 1.5 is small. The only one that gets tricky is that extra large,
Yeah.
which is a combination of 3 to 3.5.
Yeah,
But otherwise, it's kind of, it translates
right,
to the other size.
right. When we added the plus size sizes, we changed the sizing to correspond with all the other sizing of our patterns and took away the numbers.
And Betsy just linked the measurement chart.
Okay.
So that's great. I don't think I see any other questions, and if I do, we can
Okay.
go back to them.
All righty. Well, we have 5 colors of linen knit. We have off-white. What are we calling this? Cream. It's not white. Off-white. We have rose, which is kind of a dusty peach. We have lilac, faded blue, and olive green. So I put together some tonal knits, a variety of knits to go with them. So if you wanted to make the vest and you wanted to make an eTee or a Eureka is what you want to make. Sorry about that. Then here are some beautiful knits that go with it. So this is a cotton knit in a taupe color. This whole neutral camel taupe off-white white ensemble is really a big hit for summertime. I see it a lot on the internet and the various brands that I follow. This one feels like this is oops, wrong tag here. What was I going to say? This is actually a rayon and cotton French terry, but the French terry is very finely woven. So this is a beautiful soft. Whenever you're using rayon and bamboo, the fabric is always the softest you can get. Super drapey. This one is the same thing, rayon and cotton, French terry. This is cotton and spandex. These two are actually the same weight. And this one is rayon bamboo. This is, again, super soft, super drapey. So rayon, cotton, what did I say down here? I've already forgotten. Bamboo, bamboo, cotton. But they're meant to, I put them together as a tonal combination. You know, any of them can be worn with summer white pants, prints, but it's a nice, subtle, sophisticated combination of colors.
And what are you wearing on the bottom?
I am wearing the Valencia pants in linen.
Those great shoes.
I need to hike up.
Other questions?
It's not my size pants. I put things on the rack, and the pants are not always custom fit to me.
Okay.
All right. So on sale this week, of course, all the fabrics, the linen knit. If you order the linen knit in any quantity, you're automatically going to get this Shirred Longline vest tutorial, how to make it. It'll be a product that you will download and print off, but you need to order it through your account, through an account, correct?
Right, so in your order history, under the linen knit will be the download.
Correct. And then the pearl and opal pattern. Pearl and opal. Yes, I had to think about that for a second. The Eureka top and skirt comes with the skirt pattern too. And the Barcelona. Those three patterns are on sale. Now, are any of those downloads? I don't believe so. Those are all printed patterns.
Printed.
Yeah. And then we have one tutorial that's on sale at 50% off, which is sewing crinkles, gauzes, and laces. So that has to do with sewing the semi-sheer or more open weave fabrics.
The Eureka is download only.
Eureka's download only? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that does not include the skirt?
Correct.
Okay.
Or Eureka top.
That's right.
Correct.
Eureka's download only. So you can have that printed out if you want to. We can print it out for you, or you can print it out yourself. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Have I done it?
Yeah.
Is it over?
I don't see any other questions.
Okay. All right. Well, we will see you next week. Thanks so much for joining me.